Hello guys, and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be grading every single NHL team's regular season. Now, before I get into this, I'd just like to let you guys know that it is based off of my expectations. So my expectations at the start of the season play a huge role in the grades, because if you are a good team and you're not in the playoffs, but you're just below, you're still going to have a very low grade. And if you're a bad team and you're still competing, your grade is going to be pretty high. So let's get straight into the video, starting off with the Atlantic Division, because I randomized the divisions, and we're going to be going alphabetical order in these divisions. But starting off in the Atlantic Division, we're going to be starting off, 10 cents every time I say that, I guess. Whatever. The Boston Bruins. And the Boston Bruins this season have a 24-5 record for 95 points, and really they've been playing about as expected. Obviously, every year with the Bruins, you don't know if they're going to make the playoffs because they got Marchand aging, they got Bergeron aging, and every year it's just like, will they do it? But this year was still a year where they expected to make the playoffs, and they have done that, and they've had a pretty solid regular season. So the B-, pretty much saying they've played about as expected, maybe a little bit better, but pretty much as expected. But now moving on to my next team, and my favorite team, second favorite team, the Buffalo Sabres. And the Buffalo Sabres, I've actually given them a C+, not biased, all right? Listen, hear me out. So Buffalo this season, 27, 38, and 11, but that is better than what they were supposed to be. Buffalo is seen as a bottom feeder. They're a team that's going to be last, and it won't even be close. And yes, they aren't far from that, but they've been very good, and there are a lot of positive things with Buffalo. The Eichel trade looks good so far. That pick from Vegas, it could be early. Peyton Krebs has looked great. Alex Tuch looked great. All these young guys are coming in playing very good. And not only that, but Owen Power has looked fantastic in his debut. And then you got Jack Quinn, Devin Levi as a goalie, who's apparently not coming over. He's staying in NCAA. I'm kind of scared he's going to re-enter the draft. Can he do that? Please let me know in the comments. I really don't want that to happen. But Buffalo has exceeded my expectations and has played very solid this season. But now moving on to the Detroit Red Wings. And the Detroit Red Wings, I have just given them a straight C. This season, they've been going through a rebuild, obviously, the past few years. And this year, they have slowly come out of that. And overall, it's been solid. But at the start of the year, it looked like Detroit, oh my gosh, they might make the playoffs. Could they do it? And towards the second half of the year, it's really turned into, no, they're not ready. And they went through that crazy cold slide where they allowed a ton of goals. But yeah, goaltending's been coming together recently. Nedeljkovic almost put up a record not too long ago for, I think it was rookie shutout, most saves in a rookie shutout. But Detroit this season, slowly coming out of the rebuild, and in a few years, they will be very good. But now moving on to the Florida Panthers. And for the Florida Panthers, I've given them a grade of a A+. And there was no question in my mind with this one. Florida, although I saw them as first in the division before, and they are still first in the division, I still think they have exceeded my expectations a ton. Because right now, with a 53-15-6 record, they have showed that they have some dynamic offense. Like their first three lines, I think their third line is better than half the teams in the league first line. With like Reinhart, Marchment, and Lundell, that is a very good third line. That's an insane third line. Their fourth line is even pretty good. This team puts them some crazy offensive numbers. And although a lot of guys may be having career years, like they could be, Duclair, Marchment, all these guys, it's been great to watch, and they have been a fantastic team, and I'm really excited to see what they can do in the playoffs. But now moving on to the Montreal Canadiens. And in the Montreal Canadiens, we have our first F, yes. Montreal 20, 44, and 11, and although things have looked better under Martin St. Louis, they just have still had a horrible regular season. And Cole Caulfield, yeah, it looks better. There are some bright spots, but this was a team that was expected to be competing for a playoff spot until the end, and it just hasn't happened. And is this the worst year a team's had after a Stanley Cup final run? Like Stanley Cup finals and rebuild, bottom of the league. They might be last in the league right now. Let's see, why don't we just do a quick check? Montreal, 51 points. Arizona, what does Arizona have? Arizona has 49, so not quite last in the league, but still a horrendous season for the Montreal Canadiens. But now moving on to the Ottawa Senators. And the Ottawa Senators, I gave them a grade of just a flat D. Ottawa, the GM at the start of the year, he's like, hey, the rebuild, we're coming out of it. The fans were like, hey, we got all these young guys, who knows, maybe we can make the playoffs, maybe we're coming out of the rebuild. There were some actual expectations for Ottawa this season, and they have not lived up to that. They are going out of this rebuild slower than I think was expected. With a 28-40-6 record, it has not been up to expectations. But again, there are your bright spots. You have Drake Batherson, you have Josh Norris, you have Tim Stützle, who's taken some steps, but I think next year's his real breakout year. Obviously, I have Brady Tkachuk, who's putting up some very good offensive numbers. There are some bright spots, and they will be a good team eventually, but this year, I think this rebuild's going slower than it was expected to. But now moving on to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and for the Tampa Bay Lightning, I have just given them a B. Tampa Bay, defending two-time Stanley Cup champion, was expected to be a good team, and that's exactly what they've been. 45-21-8, had a very solid season, and although they've been slipping a little bit, you know, winning some, losing some lately, no one's worried. They're going to just cruise in the playoffs, and then, oh my god, they went 16-0 and won the Cup. Who's surprised? Not me. So that's exactly what's going to happen, and overall, it's been a solid season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But now moving on to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, I had to give them an A. Now, Toronto was expected to be a playoff team, and they always put up regular season numbers. I know that the playoffs what you worry about, but in this video, it's just the regular season I'm talking about. And they have a 48-20-6 and have played fantastic. Now, they've broken the 100-point mark, which I didn't expect them to do. And also, the only reason that knocks them down from being an A+ is their goaltending. They've had some goaltending issues throughout the year, mainly that middle part. Lately, it's been better, and Campbell, I question him as a starter in the playoffs, but if he can get his game together before then and play like he was at the start of the season, everything will be fine. But Toronto, again, puts up great regular season every year, and it's the playoffs that you worry about. We'll see how they do in the playoffs. I really want them to finally make it out of the first round, get Matthews that first round win, have them actually have a long playoff run, get Marner out of that first round, all these guys, Campbell. It's definitely mental right now for them. It's the mental part of the game, and lucky for them, if they want to go to the first round, they're going to have to go through Tampa this year, so good luck. Honestly, I could see them upsetting them, but we'll see. But now moving on to the next division, and that is the Metro. And going in alphabetical order in the Metro, the first team is the Carolina Hurricanes. And the Carolina Hurricanes, I have given them a A+. Carolina this season has a 48-19-8 record and has been absolutely fantastic and far above what I expected them. Now, many people probably did think that they'd be first in the division. The reason I did not think that, and I think I overcompensated, was all the bad moves they made in the offseason. And mainly the goaltending moves. I'm trying to remember all the moves, but the goaltending ones are the ones I remember the most. And that is the Freddie Andersen and Antti Raanta signings. And mostly the Freddie Andersen one. When they said, hey, we're signing this over 30-year-old goalie who had a below 900 save percentage to a 2-year contract worth $4 million, I was like, whoa, slow down. That's probably not a very good idea. Turns out it is genius, and all teams should follow this path because it has turned out extremely well for Carolina. And right now they're competing, not really. I was going to say they're competing for the Presidents. That's not happening. But they're having a great season and far above what I expected. I expected their goaltending to cause them some games, but that definitely has not happened at all. But now moving on to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And for the Columbus Blue Jackets, I have given them just a straight B. Columbus this season, 35-33-6, putting up just an over 500 record. But the thing is, I didn't think they'd be able to do this. In a tough Metro division, almost everybody had them at 8th. And that, again, hasn't happened. They've been putting up some 500 numbers. And I didn't think that would happen. So Patrick Laine really breaking out in Columbus this year. Wondering what he's going to get in the offseason. But Columbus, pretty solid year. That wasn't supposed to be pretty solid. But now moving on to the New Jersey Devils. And the New Jersey Devils, a team that annoys me so much. I gave them a D-. They were supposed to be like Ottawa coming out of this rebuild. Now, the GM didn't say, hey, the rebuild's done like Ottawa did. So fans probably weren't as angry at the GM for that. But either way, New Jersey is supposed to be coming out of the rebuild. They just have not. They're 26-42-6, and they are not. For early in the season, I'll say after like 25 games, it was like, oh, that's it. Pack up your bags. Playoffs done. That wasn't supposed to happen. So hopefully next year they can be better, and I think they will. All right, there's a lot of good pieces on this team. You have Nico Hischier. He's looked great this year, scoring goals, getting points, a lot of points. And Hughes, same thing. He's broken out, and Bratt also. Bratt has also broken out. So there are a lot of good pieces heading into next year. And they also have, obviously, the other Hughes brother. They have Holtz. They have a lot of good parts and a lot of cap space that they can sign better players. And next year's really the year where I think they make the playoffs. Even though I thought this year they might make it, they have disappointed me, and I hope they don't disappoint me next year. But this season, the rebuild is going slower than expected. I guess is that a normal thing? I don't know. But now moving on to the Islanders. And the Islanders, I gave them a C-. And the reason I didn't go super low with the Islanders with their grade is because I don't think they're playing that far below expected. I really honestly think that 13-game road trip to start the season really took a lot of the life out of them. Imagine just being in an airplane all the time for like a month. That's horrible, man. And that I feel bad because I think that really sunk the Islanders season a lot. And who knows, if they had a normal schedule, maybe we'd be talking about the Islanders being in and the Capitals being out. But obviously that hasn't happened. And the Islanders' record isn't that bad. They are a very old team, so we'll see what they do next year. We'll see what Lamoriello does next year in the offseason to make this team better. Or does he not do anything? Does he just say, this is an off year, we'll see how it goes next year? But Islanders, I think just playing slightly below expected. But now moving on to the Rangers, the other New York team. And different story with the Rangers than the Islanders. I'm giving the Rangers an A+. I predicted the Rangers to be first in the division. They might be at the end of the season, but they're still surprising me. I did not confidently say that they would be first in the division. The Islanders are 48, 21-6, and I've been getting fantastic goaltending from Shesterkin, and lately they've been getting pretty good goaltending from Georgiev as well. Now, the reason I was scared with the Rangers at the start of the season, they have 4 scorers, and that's it. No depth scoring. But at the trade deadline, they changed that. Their defense has been good, and again, trade deadline, they got Kopp, who's been great. Vetrano, who's been great. Who knew Vetrano could put up these kind of points? And then you've got Braun. So they've really solidified the depth on their team, and I could see them going far in the playoffs. And the regular season, very surprising. Although I had them at first, not confident. Again, I was not confident in that pick, but it looks like it might be right, surprisingly. But now moving on to the Philadelphia Flyers. And the Philadelphia Flyers are another team that I have given a F for. Philadelphia has just not been good. And I know they have that make the playoffs, don't make the playoffs. Make the playoffs, don't make the playoffs. And they like 10 years in a row. And this year was a don't make the playoffs, but and I didn't think they'd make the playoffs, but their don't make the playoffs have turned into they don't make the playoffs, because it has been a horrible year. And they even have the chance to get Shane Wright this year, which is pretty funny to think about. But maybe they could bounce back next year. You know, they have the roster to do so. It annoys me that their GM makes so many stupid moves, like that stupid Ristolainen signing. That was too much money. Why would you do that? But I'm not going to get into all that right now. Not a good season for Philadelphia. But now moving on to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the Pittsburgh Penguins, I have given them a B+. Pittsburgh playing better than I expected, because I figured Pittsburgh's team was aging and they would not be able to make the playoffs this year. They have really proven me wrong, and I don't know when they'll finally miss the playoffs, but this year is not the one. And they still got Crosby playing well. They still got Rust playing extremely well. Getzel, Malkin, all these guys playing well. And they're definitely playing above what I expected, but to most people probably about as expected. But now moving on to the Washington Capitals. And the Washington Capitals, I have just given them a C+. I figured they'd be a wild card team, and they've been a wild card team. Really not much to say with Washington. They're getting older. Same thing with Pittsburgh. Same thing with Boston. All these teams getting older. Someday they're going to have to enter a rebuild, but again, now's not that time. Washington, we'll see how they do in the playoffs. I don't think they'll go far personally, because, you know, their goaltending, I don't think they quite have the goaltending to do it. I also don't think that they'll be able to, I don't think that they'll be able to recreate what they did in 2018. Their goaltending, and they're getting older, and I don't see them being able to do it. That's really it. There's not much to say with Washington. The regular season, it's been about as expected for me. But now moving on to the Western Conference. And starting the Western Conference, I'm going to be going to the Pacific Division. And in alphabetical order, the first team is the Anaheim Ducks. And the Anaheim Ducks, I've given them a C+. Now, I know they're not in the playoffs, and they've slid a lot recently, but I still think that they deserve to have a above expected grade, because they were a lot of people had them as last in the division, and I as well had them at 7th, so I didn't think they'd be very good either. But they have been pretty solid. They held a playoff spot for a while there until at the trade deadline. They made a lot of moves, and I think it was the right move. They sold off Hampus Lindholm, Josh Manson, Deloria. They made a lot of sales, but smart move. Anaheim, not quite ready yet, and I don't see them being in the playoffs next year, but 2 years, definitely could. And this season, there are bright spots. Zegras makes every game fun to watch. Zegras makes Anaheim a fun team to watch. And Troy Terry, the emergence of Troy Terry, a great thing to see. And overall, a C+ season for Anaheim. But now moving on to Calgary. And Calgary, I had to give them an A+. And it hurts me so bad as an Oiler fan. This proves to you I'm not biased. I ain't biased. This is my honest opinion. And as an Oiler fan, I'm giving Calgary A+, because they have been fantastic this season. Calgary is what? Let me see their record. 45, 20, and 9. And I know they've been skidding lately, and it's not a good thing to do to skid headed into the playoffs, but I still think they'll be fine. They're built for the playoffs, and they're recreating that 2018-19 season. Again, hopefully not the playoff part of it. Like, Calgary fans right now really hoping that, although they're recreating, like, being great and having all these players play good, and Gaudreau getting 100 points, which he's never done before, but they don't want to recreate the playoff part of that season. That would be rough. But Calgary overall this season has had a very good season, and I didn't think they'd even be making the playoffs. So for them to be first in the division is an absolute shock to me. But now moving on to the Edmonton Oilers. And the Edmonton Oilers, I have them at a B-. This season has been a roller coaster. It's been, yeah, we're going to make the play. No, we're going to make the playoffs. Okay, we're going to make the playoffs. Everything's good. It looks like we're going to make the playoffs. So Edmonton, B-, about what was expected, because they were supposed to be second in the division behind Vegas, which hasn't happened, but we'll get to Vegas in a little bit. And Oilers, about what I would think happened. Just a weird way of getting there. Ups and downs. It's not fun. Please, next year, just be like this. Oh, I turned the camera a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Be like this, not like this. But now moving on to the LA Kings. And the LA Kings are the worst team to have a A, because I've given them an A-, so not quite an A. But LA is competing for a playoff spot still. We're in the last 5 games, last 7 games, whatever, of the season. And LA is still managing to fight their way for a playoff spot. And I don't think they get it, but it's really close. LA has a lot of games against weak opponents, and all they have to do is beat these not playoff teams, and they're completely fine. So LA this season, I, again, did not expect them to make it, and they really have made the playoffs, and we'll see how it goes for them if they manage to get in. These injuries have caused them a lot of problems, and honestly, without the injuries, I think we'd be looking at the West and saying, all right, Calgary, LA, Edmonton, there's your teams. Vegas is out, but LA's injuries and LA's skid has really made things interesting. But I think overall, as a whole, their season has been an A, because I really did not expect them to be this good this early. But now moving on to the San Jose Sharks. And the San Jose Sharks, another team that annoys me, and I've given them a C. And what annoys me is that they're playing as expected, but they're not making the playoffs, and they're not rebuilding. Like, if you're a bad team and you're playing as expected, okay, at least you're bad and you're headed into a rebuild and all that. San Jose isn't doing that. They refuse to rebuild, and their GM refuses to say, hey, we're in a rebuild. No, they do bad every year, get high draft picks because they're doing bad, and yet they say, we're going to win next year. No, and I didn't think they'd win this year either. So with a 29, 33, and 11 record, 69 points, oh, funny number, but they've been playing as expected, and it just annoys me to see a team that's not going into a rebuild and not getting better play as expected and just be like, oh yep, that's about how they should be. But now moving on to Seattle, and another, man, how many teams are we going to get that annoys me in a row? Because Seattle annoys me as well. I'm giving them an F. What is their GM doing at the... First of all, I'm going to start from the beginning with Seattle. What is their GM doing at the expansion draft? What moves? Why? No Tarasenko. Why wouldn't you pick up Tarasenko? I know Viston has been good for them. Cool. All right. But Tarasenko, if you're doing bad on Seattle, let's say Seattle is where they are right now, and you have Tarasenko scoring at a great rate, you could have sold him off at the deadline for a ton of assets. Same goes for Max Domi. I don't even think they got a notable player from Columbus, and they could have had Max Domi. So yeah, just starting off by saying, horrible expansion draft. And now let's go into the season where, even though they had a horrible expansion draft, I expected them to be okay. They have not been okay. They have been not good at all, actually. They are competing for last in the league, so they're in a real dogfight for that top chance of getting Shane Wright position. But it's been a disappointing season for Seattle fans, and yeah, I guess you get to experience what it's like to be an expansion team that's not Vegas. So let's move on to the Vancouver Canucks. And the Vancouver Canucks, another team that's had a roller coaster of a season, and I am going to be giving them a C+. I think it all balances out, you know. Travis Green, F. Bruce Boudreau, A+. C+. I think it all works out. So, Vancouver 37, 28, and 10, fighting for a playoff spot. I do not think they will get it, but they are fighting for one. And overall, with 84 points, you know, I like Vancouver. I like the fight that they have in them, but I don't know. Vancouver, what was the old GM's name? Yeah, so the old GM ruined this team, and Bruce Boudreau, Travis Green sunk this team a ton. Bruce Boudreau came and saved it. Can't quite get them into a playoff spot, I think. But overall, it balanced out to being about what I expected from the Vancouver Canucks this season. But now moving on to the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Vegas Golden Knights, I said I'd get to them earlier when I was talking about the Calgary Flames. But now I'm here talking about the Vegas Golden Knights, and I gave them a D+. It has been a horrible season by their expectations. They were supposed to be the easy first place team in this division. It was seen as this team had a failure of a season if they don't get first. The Pacific Division sucks. Oh. Well, guess what? Vegas might miss the playoffs, which is insane to think. They are over the cap right now, and they might miss the playoffs. Now, the reason they have a D+ and not a D or an F or whatever is because I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt with all the injuries they've managed. The same way I gave LA some of the benefit of the doubt with their A-, I wanted to give Vegas some of that with all the injuries, because I think that if there wasn't injuries, we'd be looking at Vegas in the playoffs. And who knows, maybe Edmonton wouldn't be in, but I don't know. But Vegas, injuries have definitely hurt them a ton. And yeah, it's just been a horrible season for them. And if they managed to get in the playoffs, well, at least they got there. But the way they got there wasn't the way that they were supposed to. But now moving on to the Central Division, the last division in this video. And we're going to be starting off with the best team in the league, the Arizona Coyotes. And for the Arizona Coyotes, I actually gave them a C. So you might be like, why would you give them a C? They're terrible. Yeah, but they were supposed to be terrible. You see, the expectation part plays a role here. Arizona was supposed to be the worst team in the league, and they have been the worst team in the league. So really, no matter what Arizona did, they were pretty much guaranteed to C, unless they played better than what I expected. But if they went 0-82, obviously they'd get an F. But yeah, Arizona this season, obviously not playing good. Their record shows it. You can see it on the screen. It's been terrible. But you know, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? This is what was supposed to happen. But now moving on to the Chicago Blackhawks, another team that's been terrible. But there's a different story here because I've given them an F. Chicago, their GM for some reason saw them as a playoff team. And this is after a bad year, right? So they had a good start last year, and they fell off, and they missed the playoffs, and then their GM saw them, and they're like, yes, we have a chance. So they traded for Seth Jones. They traded for Tyler Johnson, and they both Seth Jones actually has played pretty fine, but the contract is still way too much, and they are not playing good as a team at all. And I think that Kane and Taves actually have a chance of maybe leaving next season because of how rough this has been. And it's shocking to me that they actually saw themselves as a playoff team. And even though I still didn't see them as a playoff team, they're still playing below what I thought they were capable of doing, because I figured they would be like 6th, 5th, you know, just miss maybe by a bit. But they have really just fallen off completely. But now moving on to the actual best team in the league, and that is the Colorado Avalanche. The Colorado Avalanche this season had high expectations, and they have definitely lived up to those, and I have to give them an A+. Even if this was your expectation, I still have to give them an A+, because they have just been absolutely fantastic. 54, 14, and 6 for 114 points, and getting that dreaded curse that is the President's Trophy. They probably will get that. So we'll see how they do in the playoffs. So Colorado having a fantastic regular season, and like Toronto, the question isn't the regular season, it's the playoffs. And unlike Toronto, it's not the first round, it's the second round. For the last 3 years in a row, Colorado has gotten out to the second round. Obviously, last year it was to Vegas who eliminated them. And this year, Colorado really hoping to get out of that. I don't know if they're necessarily built for the playoffs, but with Kemper and Net playing the way he is, with the dynamic offense they have, I could definitely see it happening finally this year. And the expectation for them in the playoffs is the Cup. No other words. But now moving on to the Dallas Stars. And the Dallas Stars, I have given them a C+. Dallas this season, I predicted that they would be a wild card team that barely makes it, fights for the spot to the end of the season. This season, they have been a wild card team that has fought to the end and will probably end up getting that spot. So pretty much spot on there. The C+ is because I, again, gave them the benefit of the doubt. They're playing pretty good right now. They played pretty solid throughout the whole year. And yes, overall, Dallas is having a pretty good season. But now moving on to the Minnesota Wild. And the Minnesota Wild, I have given them a A. Now, Minnesota, I gave them an A because I like the Dallas. I figured Dallas and Minnesota would be going at it for the playoff spot. I wasn't confident in Minnesota this season because I figured last year was actually one of their better years. And I didn't know if they'd be able to recreate that this year, but they have definitely proven me wrong. And Kirill Kaprizov hasn't proved me wrong because I still think he'd be a good player. But he has been an absolutely amazing player, like a top 10 in the league, maybe. Debatable top 10 in the league for sure. And this whole team just looks like they could be a team that you do not want to play in the playoffs. They really toughened their lineup at the trade deadline, getting Delorier, getting Fleury, getting Middleton. They made some great moves, and we'll see how they do in the playoffs. But now moving on to the Nashville Predators. And the Nashville Predators, I think actually, no, the LA Kings are the worst team to get an A. But Nashville is right by the LA Kings, and I've also given them a A-. Nashville, every year, they surpass expectations every single season. And this season, I saw Nashville as missing the playoffs and not being close. I looked at their lines, and I said, they don't have offensive depth here. They don't have they have a solid defense. It's just not the same without Ellis. This is what I was saying at the start of the season. And they have proved me wrong in both ways. Their defense has been great. Saros, I knew he'd be good. He's been great. But really what's changed and led to Nashville being where they are is that offense. Not that it's been top in the league, but it hasn't been bottom in the league like I thought it would be. Because when you have Duchesne bouncing back, you have Johansson bouncing back, and then you have Forsberg having a great year, and adding to that offense is Roman Josi, who's having a career year. Like, speaking of career years, man, what a career year for him. And speaking of career years, why don't you check out my video that I made on career years? Oh, it's like a self-promotion right there. But no, Nashville having a fantastic year by their expectations, and will they make the playoffs? Maybe. They're one of those teams that's in that mix right now. But now moving on to the St. Louis Blues. And the St. Louis Blues, I gave them a B+. St. Louis, the 2019 Cup champions, can they recreate it? Maybe. Maybe with Ville Husso this time, because what a shock Ville Husso has been. Last season, he was not great, and I thought that they should replace their goalie tandem. And even in my goalie tandem video at the start of the year, I said, why didn't they replace Ville Husso? Well, this is why. Apparently, he is a stud starter. That they knew it the whole time. They knew it the whole time. That's what they'll tell you. But Ville Husso and the St. Louis Blues playing, not Ville Husso as expected, but St. Louis playing about as expected, and we'll see what they can do in the playoffs. Can they recreate that 2019 Cup win? But now moving on to the last team on this list, and I'm sorry, Winnipeg. I'm sorry that you're last again on another list of all 32 teams. But not only are you last on this list, because I figured I'd make you feel better, not only are you last on this list, but your team has been playing far below expectations. So let's go. Let's get a round of applause for Winnipeg. All Winnipeg fans have left right now. If they haven't left before, because they'd have to wait to the end of the video to get here. But Winnipeg, I gave them a D, and it is well justified, because Winnipeg, I saw Winnipeg as a top team. Connor Hellebuck, a very good goalie, and then you got some of the best offensive depth in the league, I think, and they fixed their defense as well in the offseason. They got Nate Schmidt and Dylan DeMello, which really improved their defense, but they're still just not playing good. I don't know what happened. Last year was a little bit of a down year, and I was like, okay, this year they're gonna be better. And on paper, they should be. But no, I don't know. And it's just been a really rough season for Winnipeg, and I have given them a D. So thank you guys for watching. If you are still here and you are still watching this video, which if you are an absolute trooper, and I thank you so much for the support as well. So yeah, thank you if you are still here. My next video, I might get it out. I'm hoping I can edit this today. As I'm recording this, I think the second period's probably just ended in the Oiler game. They were winning 1-0 last time I saw. I left it to record this video to save me some time later today. So I'm going to go watch the third period. Maybe watch the Buffalo game later. Probably not. I'm probably going to get out of the house a little bit later. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching if you are still here. And I will hopefully see you in the next video, which I think I'm going to be talking about what each team, a little bit of a sneak peek if you are still here, talking about what each team needs to do in the playoffs for their fan base to be happy. So like, oh, voice crack. So like, it's the outro. If anybody's here, they're just chilling. But like Edmonton, let's say, because my favorite team, just use it as an example. They need a second round thing. They need to make it to the second round for their fan base to be happy. And here's why. Something like that. I think Edmonton needs to make it further for their fan base to be happy. But that's just an example. So yeah, for the 5th time, let me say thanks for watching. And hopefully I see you in the next video. So yeah, see ya. Take the mic off, take the hat off. My hair's a little bit rough today. Yeah. See ya. Oh, that's a loud noise. I'm gonna fix that. And